Good morning, this is Steve here in Sydney of the diagnosis website truebluehealer.com. I've got some wonderful news for you on a subject that will interest you all, I'm sure, and that is the progress of Chanan, my brother-in-law in Fiji, the one that I rescued from his deathbed some 6 months ago and made a video about it, how he was dying of the diabetic neuropathy, which was wrongly diagnosed diabetic beriberi, do you remember? I explained it in about 3 or 4 videos to get the message out, and he was off his deathbed in about a week, and within a fortnight he had gone back to repairing his house, having gone back to the hospital and impressed the endocrinologist there, who was astonished by his vigour and aggression, denouncing him for not knowing about Benfotiamine. There was a bit of a shouting match, I am told. So what happened to Chanan after that? After he recovered, his heartbeat normalised, his eyesight restored, his feet swelling went down, practically stopped. There was some residual foot swelling, but that seems to run in the family. I'm still investigating that. But over the next few months he became increasingly happy and jocular, and the first time he'd called us in a long time, he'd been on his deathbed saying goodbye. He couldn't breathe with a breath rate of 30 beats a minute and swollen chest. After a couple of weeks of Benfotiamine, he was totally reversed in nature, and he was singing Bollywood songs down the telephone to his sisters in Sydney and cracking all sorts of original jokes he was making up, to everyone's surprise. Indeed, he seemed to be happy. Happier than he'd ever been in his life, because he'd been given what seemed to be a new lease of life, certainly from his perspective. And this went on for a number of months, and they were enjoying his phone calls more than ever, you see. And he'd ring up his sisters and talk to them for about an hour or so. And this last Saturday he did that. He called the other sister in another suburb of Sydney and chatted to her for an hour, was very happy and jocular. He asked for more tablets, more Benfotiamine pills, because they made him feel wonderful, restored his health dramatically, and put the phone down, and he went off and did the usual thing they often do in Fiji, drank a huge bowl of kava, which they drink like tea. It's just a social thing they do, because they have many, many free hours of time in Fiji. There's not much employment, but there's a lot of free time. So they have a much more laid-back lifestyle than we Western people do, who are always scurrying about. Anyway, so he had a big bowl of kava with some people, and then he watched a bit of plasma TV before he went to bed. And then, middle of the night, he suddenly went cold. He passed away at 2 AM, you see. So you might think this is a terrible shame and it's a shock, and I suppose it is, because he was only 55. Certainly it grieved his family and myself, because he had everything going for him. His health was 80–90% restored, simply with Benfotiamine, and I advised him how to take his diabetic medication in a better way. Doctors didn't know how to do it in Fiji, but now let me tell you what happened before he died. Now, with what I've just told you, that he died at 2 o'clock in the morning peacefully in his sleep, after 6 months of rising jocularity, joviality and sheer fun and laughter from him over the telephone, which was commented on by people, let me tell you some other things that he was doing. In the last 6 months of his life, he was talking to his sons, 4 mechanic sons, that he wouldn't be here all the time, you know, and they would have to finish the house off themselves. And he kept talking about himself sort of in the past tense, like he wouldn't be here. And he's instructing the boys on how to finish the grouting in the bathrooms and make sure that window's installed correctly and the floor tiles have got to be sloped a certain way, that sort of thing, to get the water out of the bathroom, all that sort of jazz. Just like a foreman, a mechanic that he always was, instructing his sons in their early 20s on how to do everything. And they're all self-trained mechanics. And but he was always talking, he started talking about, I won't always be here, you see. Now, that was said 4 or 5 months in advance of his death, you see. Now, something else he did. 400 people turned up at his funeral. He was greatly missed because he repaired everybody's cars in a sector of Nandi, which is a western Fiji town, and he was very widely known and very widely liked. And in the last 6 months he took to playing a very unusual joke on people. He'd ring them up and he'd say, your car's ready, you come around and pick it up. And they would say, I'll be there in half an hour. So they would come around to pick up their repaired car and they would find Chanan dead in front of the vehicle, feigning death. He got so good at tricking people that thinking he was dead that he used to roll up laughing, and he caused some people some disconcert, some discombobulation, some distress, some upset, because he was getting better and better at fooling people that he was dead. This went on for the last few months of his life before he finally died for real. Now it looks like he was rehearsing. Everyone around him through what was going to happen. It came as a great shock to his wife because she was only 50. He was only 55, and I thought with Benfotiamine he might get another 15, 20, 30 years of life, you see, but that was not to be. So, now you might think I've told you all that and the story's over, and that's not the end of the story at all. There's more to this story. And it goes like this. One of the unusual funeral rituals they do when people die in Muslim Fiji is they donate a nice new set of clothing to charity through the mosque, you see, and they donated a brand new pair of black trousers and a lovely white collared shirt, a lovely business shirt, okay, the kind of thing you'd like to be seen in. Anyway, so what do you say? Well, I didn't know about that little ritual, so I'm passing that on to you so you get some idea of the ambience of the situation. And then, this is where the story takes a turn. 10 days after his death, and he was buried just a few hours after his death, before lunch, 10 days after, so I hope you didn't notice the seamless wardrobe change there, but 10 days after Chanan was buried, he started turning up in people's dreams. His wife Goody reported a very vivid dream just before she woke up where Chanan appeared to her and said words to the effect, "I'm all right, I'm okay, don't worry about me, okay?" And then his daughter Zaina, a university student, she reported a dream the following day, basically the same sort of thing, and her dream involved some other people in the family, and Chanan wanted to give the impression in this dream to Zaina, his Nandi daughter, that everything was fine, he was safe, and he wasn't really dead after all, and he had limited access to them through their dreams, you see. Now, time or space gets in the way of things, so we think, us people struggling against the physical, struggling against gravity, distance, heat, cold, time, all that sort of stuff. To get from Fiji to Sydney is a hard slog on a plane that's 3,000 miles, 4 hours time difference or something, and quite an effort to get there. Many hundreds of tons of jet fuel are used, right? Guess what? Chanan turned up effortlessly in Sydney, though he's never been there. He turned up in the dreams of two people. One of them was his other daughter living in Sydney, and it was a smoky dream, but definitely Dad, and a dream she'd never had before. And previously she'd had a visitation, which we now realise was in fact a visitation, the strong smell of camphor. That was on the day he was buried. That happened on the Sunday, okay? That daughter in Sydney, thousands of miles away, got a camphor visitation. Now, that also happened with the nephew in Sydney, living in the suburb of Auburn, by the name of Sahib, and he woke up in the morning, then nodded off back to sleep again. Very shallow sleep makes people easy to insert dreams into. That's when we're most dream prone. And a little conversation ensued, and it went something like this: "Chanan, it's you. You're alive after all." Words to that effect. And Chanan said, "Yes, indeed." And Sahib then asked the obvious question, which was been on his mind all that time, about near-death experiences that we learned from Victor Zammit. He said, have you seen the chief? When you passed over, did you see the chief? Now, the chief is the father of this Sahib's family. They always call Dad the chief, and he died about 5 years ago. And Chanan, visiting from Fiji where he died, visiting someone in Auburn, Sydney, about 14-15 days after his funeral, has said yes, he has in fact seen the chief, that's Sahib's father, when he passed on. Okay, so that's quite an adventure for one person's death, one person's passing, and the major message is that clearly he's not dead. He's still active and able to make minor intrusions into our channel. He's now living in an adjacent channel of reality, like an adjacent television channel, and he can cause a little bit of interference to get our attention in this channel. He can show us anomalies, okay? Dreams is one of them. Odorous visitations via the smell of camphor is another. And I'm going to tell you now about another one, and that is namely an electrical one. This was discovered, realised in retrospect. The four boys are all mechanics in their early 20s, all very knowledgeable about analysis. They built the house, they did all the wiring, they put all new lighting and power sockets in everywhere, light sockets galore. But on the day that Chanan died, it was noticed that the light, the incandescent light, failed in his bedroom, you see. And so being a bunch of fix-it men, one of the boys immediately fixed it, you see. By the end of the evening it had failed twice more, you see, so they gave up replacing the bulbs. They were still in shock from losing their dad at age 55, at such a tender age when he was so bouncingly healthy and seemingly happy to be alive. The following day the light bulbs were all tested and found to be good. They worked in another room. And this kind of stopped them in their tracks. This is ruining logic, you see, logical analysis, because another bulb works in that socket for a few minutes and then stops, you see. Anyway, over the next few days, Chanan starts teaching them that he can flicker any light in the house. They notice it. And then, by about 18 days, he's got them all trained, and when they go out in the heat, when it goes below 45 degrees, they go into the coolest place they can find, which is a rear room in the garage, and they drink big bowls of kava. Nothing much else to do. You cannot work in this heat. You can't stand up even. You basically have to sit down. It's so damned hot. And you find the shadiest place you can, and you just wait for the heat to subside. This is typically in the evening you have to do this. And when they all go into this one room, the light starts flickering, signalling that he is there. And in fact, that's what the boys now say. Their grieving is greatly reduced because they realise, they say, Abba is here, he's here. Abba is their name, the Hindi name for Dad. Okay? So, and now it's been demonstrated that wherever they go as a group, the flickering light follows them. Okay? So that's something to bear in mind. Now this is backed up by a little book. I'm going to link underneath this video for you. It's a $3 download from Amazon.com. It's a Kindle for PC free download, and you can read this little $3 book, and it lists all the properties and attributes of our reality that passed over people can modulate and slightly vary to get our attention. And there's a lot more that Chanan could do. One of them is in insects, mentioned in the book. They're apparently unable to influence the behaviour of insects, particularly large dragonflies, which they do have a lot of insects in Fiji, and if I can contact Chanan, I'll be asking him to try and do that. Now, exciting this is, there's more to the story. The clothes he's been seen wearing are in fact the clothes he was given, the white business shirt and the smart black trousers. And so it's got nothing to do with geography. He can visit anywhere that he wants to, and he's focusing on people that he wants to visit. So geography looks like time and space, jet lag and all that is no longer a factor. He seems to be able to visit anyone he wants to at will. And all the evidence from Victor Zammit is that to do this, deceased people need some help from other spirits. They can't do it entirely by themselves. But for me, all this means, and it should for you, I think, join the dots yourself, make your own decisions on this. There are thousands of stories like this collected by Victor Zammit and supplied in a weekly email, which has always got wonderful, exciting, interesting news like this. And similar stories that you read are stories that you read, the dreaded anecdotes. And here we've got our own anecdote in our own family of considerable strength and validity as far as I'm concerned. I just thought you'd like to know about this. It's well worth knowing. I think it's a wonderful personal experience for myself too. He expressed great regret to Goody that he hadn't seen me before he died. He held me in high esteem because I helped him out a lot. Supplied him with lots of tools in Fiji which you can't buy. I gave him $10,000 worth of tools to get his garage going properly, and he was always grateful to me for that. And the two sisters on the telephone, when he was ringing them up, had been saying, oh well, we're coming in September, we can't come right now, we've both got work commitments, blah blah blah. He held on as long as he could. So now I'll tell you one more thing, which is another person's experience, and you can stack it against this, and you could see a sort of pattern forming where you can delineate what really happens while you're here on the physical plane of Earth, living this life, which is basically just a working holiday, it seems. Now, here's another little sort of personal story which I've remembered for years, and it's about that you seem to have a life plan, and there's certain positions where you're allowed to leave. You're given the opportunity to step off the planet if you want to, and you seem to have a choice. It happened to my dad. In his late 70s he had this very strange dream where found himself on a bus, and he's looking around at the bus, and he's on this trip in this dream, and he's noticing sitting around him are all the aunties that are deceased in his family. He's got aunties both sides of the family, and they're telling him that it's okay now, George, you can come with us, you belong with us, that sort of thing, right? Anyway, it slowly dawns on him what he's doing. He's leaving his life on the Gold Coast in Australia, he's leaving it, and he's on a bus to go somewhere else where all his deceased relatives are, you see. Obviously they're not dead, but he takes note of that. But he decides it's not his time yet. He doesn't come out and say that, he just demands to get off the bus because he says, I'm not going with you, this is not my time yet. So I'm getting off the bus, you see. Now, you might say that's just a dream, so what? Well, 2 weeks later, now he had been told, be very, very careful, George, be very, very careful. Nothing happened for 2 weeks, and then he fell over in the shower and nearly killed himself. He smashed the shower screen to smithereens, could easily have died. So this might have been the planned exit for him had he wanted to leave. But because he decided no, he wasn't ready yet, he wasn't going, that he didn't get a lethal injury after all and carried on. He's still going today, some 15, 16 years later. So that just gives you another little insight, not from another angle, about this business about some people can leave and other people can't leave until they've achieved certain goals. And then if you have achieved some goals, then maybe you have the opportunity to go early if you've been outstandingly successful. But it seems a bit rubbery, but there is some free choice in it. And then we get the near-death people who are told, no, you've definitely got to go back, your lifeline's important, you've got things to achieve. So, that could be the reason that Chanan went too, because he was allowed to go. Maybe he wanted to finish on a high note. He may have been given the opportunity, because one of the lessons we get from near-death experiences and just normal pre-death experiences, that dying actually takes weeks or months. Dying is not signalled by your heart stopping. Dying is a process initiated months in advance, and the person knows about it. and they start often putting their affairs in order, socialising with everyone that they care about more vividly than ever, and getting ready to go. It's like they've been given a signal. It's probably some kind of intuition, possibly dreams, night or day. They both work. So it looks like you basically live here on a life story of a certain flavour and disposition and ambience, and once you've done it, you're permitted to leave. But we hear the other side of that coin confirming the story that many people have early near-death experiences, and they're told, you can have a look at this place, but you can't stay, you have to go back. You've got things to do. So you have a life plan laid out ahead of you, and you don't have anywhere near as much free will as you think. You do conform to a storyline of your life, and this may explain why so many people engage in repeated negative behaviours despite the wisest counsel from relatives, friends, professional counsellors, etc. They keep doing the wrong thing over and over again. I think it's because it's some kind of penance they're paying, and they're having this possibly distress, whatever it is, inflicted upon them. They have to live a life of this kind of distress. For some reason they need it. And they're made to endure it until they've learned a lesson. So I just thought I'd put that to you to sort of flesh out the picture a bit. A further example I can give you of this people hanging around after they're dead is something I noticed once when I went to a medium's meeting. I was the only person there who wasn't a medium. I was only curious to see what they do and what they talk about. And we were having cups of tea and biscuits before the session started, you see. And I was there about an hour early, so I had plenty of time to kill. So you spend a lot of time talking to other people in the room while they sip their tea and coffee, etc., you see. Anyway, as an electrical engineer, I noticed something strange going on in the lounge room we were all sitting in, and it was that the central incandescent light was flickering on and off in a very sharp way. Being an electrical engineer, I would normally diagnose it as probably an arcing wire or something, or a faulty switch, you see. But it couldn't have been, because, for a couple of reasons, the periodicity and sharpness of the on-off light intensity was just too sharp and clearly seemed to be intelligent to me. And none of the other lights in the house were flickering, only this one, you see. Anyway, I noticed that and then forgot about it because I was really a bit bored, you see. Anyway, about half an hour later, I'm talking to a lady over a cup of tea, and she just volunteered. She says, she said, that light flickering, she said, that's my husband. He died 2 years ago, and he always promised he would never leave me, and he follows me about flickering lights everywhere. So he may not be able to make himself visible to her, but he makes his presence known by flickering lights. And this is 2 years. He wouldn't leave her alone. So there's he actually complained about being dead to her, she being a medium. He actually complained about being dead. He didn't like it. He'd rather hang around with her, and he was doing literally that. She found it amusing, among other things, touching, that sort of thing. But that's another example of people making their presence known. That's a real life. That happened at a place called Wallacia in Sydney, and I don't know the medium's name. I can't remember. But that's another little story, which is a true story that I saw, you see. So I think I've told you enough now to get your imagination working. You can construct your own line about you're living a story here, and it's got nothing to do with time. The story you live is all about your personal development, the goals you have to achieve here to make up for deficits in previous lives, and you're headed toward knowing some stuff with accumulated knowledge from many lives. And just before you are born, your memory of your selection process, you choose this life, you agree to live this life, and just before you're born, that memory of the choice process is blanked for you. So everything's new to you when you emerge from your mother. Okay, you start all over again. And that's the nature of life, it seems. So, can I just say one more thing about Chanan's appearances and what he appeared like? Not more than just the clothing he was wearing. At age 55, when he died, he appeared about 30 and be in the physical prime of his life. And he had the hair that he was famous for having, rich, black, deep hair. Okay? So this is conforming to reports from Victor Zammit, from hundreds of thousands of people all over the world who've experienced similar things. So I hope this fleshes out the picture for you a little bit more. It all makes a lot of sense to myself. But there's something wonderfully humorous to this as well. Chanan was always a practical joker, playing dead. And he used to do it with his superstitious native Fijian friends. And in fact, about 13 days after his death, a phone call was put to one of his best native friends, and that your tractor's ready, we finished it, you see. So he comes round in the evening, it's dark, you see. Anyway, he's off to the tractor, round the back of the garage, and the dogs all start howling in a strange way, like they did on the day of the funeral. Okay? Now, the dogs started howling again, and Chanan's voice spoke to him out of the darkness. Said "Bula," which is hello in Fijian, you see, and some kind of greeting, and which of course he instantly recognised the voice of Chanan, turned around, white as a ghost, and ran like hell, and because they're deeply afraid of ghosts, Fijian people, and he flagged down a passing car and jumped in and got away as quick as he could. So now that's Chanan's idea of a practical joke, and he was playing dead before he ever really died, frightening his superstitious friends, you see. So there was always like a little bit of a cruel streak to his humour. There often is from comedians all over, we know that. But we take this as another sign that Chanan is definitely able to reveal his appearance in small but limited ways. So I just thought you'd like to hear that, and beneath this video I'm going to put a link to someone else's description of their own death that was retrieved through a medium, and it's about the precise process of dying, what it's like and how different the other channel of existence really is. That's the non-physical channel. So that's all I can tell you at the moment. Stay tuned, there could be more telephone reports coming in. Bear with me. I hope I've given you a lot to think about. So this is Steve here in Sydney, the Lay Gnosis website, truebluehealer.com. Over and out.